Righty. Thank you, everyone, and welcome to the San Anselmo Library's virtual program today, 20 Great Plants for Marin Gardens. I'm Sariana, the Adult Services Librarian at the San Anselmo Public Library. And before we begin, I'd like to thank the Friends of the Library and the Library Parcels Tax for sponsoring this program and all library programs. Everyone will remain muted until the end of the presentation. If you have a question, please type it into the chat box and we'll answer questions at the end of the presentation. Technology can be very fickle, and I want to thank you all in advance for your patience and understanding during this program. We are recording this program and I will send the link out later today or early tomorrow. Our speakers today are Arlene Banks and Geri Cooper. Arlene has been a master gardener since 2020. She has lived in San Rafael for over 30 years, and during that time has learned what plants grow well in the Marin microclimate. Arlene enjoys visiting gardens, talking to other gardeners, and working in her own garden. Geri Cooper has been a master gardener since 2012. She lives in San Anselmo and enjoys advising Marin gardeners through Master Gardener water walks and working with second graders in the Marin Master Gardener program, exploring habitats at the Marin Art and Garden Center. Please join me in welcoming Arlene Banks and Geri Cooper. Yay!
Hi.
Let me start sharing. Go for it, Geri.
All right. 20 great plants for your garden. By the way, it's so nice to see some faces listening to our presentation today. Before we start, on each slide, we will tell you the name of the plant. There will also be the name of the plant in scientific words. The reason why that is important is if you wanted to find out by a plant in France, you could name it and you'd get the same plant. If you go by the common name, you might get into trouble. There's a hummingbird sage, there's a hummingbird mint, etc., by common names. Most of these, all of these plants that we're going to be introducing to you or reviewing with you are Mediterranean plants. And the Mediterranean plants have grown in areas which have a cool winter, rather, not horrible, and a dry summer. Such areas that are Mediterranean areas are the Bay Area, California, Chile, South Africa, and Australia and New Zealand. The other thing I wanted to say that in the names of things, we have after the scientific name, we have which is the genus. You next have the species. Now the species are very variable. So I urge you to pay attention to those nomenclatures. And you can look these up online and find out how big it's going to grow, whether it needs shade, it needs sun, etc. If you don't, and you buy a plant like I did before I became a master gardener, and I saw this cute little palm plant, and now it is no longer 2 feet tall. It is now 20 feet tall, and I thought I was wrong. So I didn't pay attention, and I think that's perhaps the best thing to explain to you today. All right, let's go to the first slide. Sariana, thank you. Ceanothus, scientific name. You could call it California wild lilac or buckthorn, but I don't think anybody uses that. They use Ceanothus. Ceanothus have about 60 varieties, and you might have a variety. You might have a hybrid, or you could have right here, which is a tall, big native to California. You can see the wonderful color. You can also have it up in pink or white. They like well-drained soil, but they tolerate clay. One thing you can do with it if you have children is you take the blossoms, put some water in your hand, and it'll foam up just like soap. That's the Native Americans would do that. Next slide. Westringia fruticosa, and I call it Westringia because I'm used to it. But anyway, it's a really nice bush. And it has pink or white blossoms that are small. And it needs full sun and many soil types, although they like to be in well drained. Notice again, we have 3 to 6 feet tall. The one thing you have to know about Westringia is you want to keep it pruned, little tip prunes so that it keeps in shape. Otherwise, it will get woody, but it's a wonderful plant. Next. Achillea millefolium is yarrow, which most of you know. It says it's 3 feet tall, but I find it varies a lot. So you can have 3 feet tall and rather skinny, or it can have, like here, you have a lot of ferny kind of foliage. The one thing that is really nice about the Achillea, it makes a little platform because it's flat. It's an umbral flower. And butterflies can land on it. Native bees can land on it without falling off. And it's, or hanging on. So it's really a very nice plant. And now it comes in hybrids of white. Yeah, well, white is yellow's the most native one. Yellow, now they have one called Moon Glow, which is shorter than the usual one. Pink and magenta. Next. Tagetes lemmonii is an evergreen, which is big and from Mexico, and is really quite nice in the background. It's also nice to keep away from something you have to smell all the time, because it has a rather pungent, but I like it, but I wouldn't want to be with it all the time. Tolerates clay, attracts bees and butterflies. Really a very pleasant plant. Next. Manzanita is a California Western native. Arctostaphylos densiflora, and densiflora would mean it's rather compact. Howard McMinn Manzanita, 5 to 7 feet tall, 8 to 10 feet wide. Once established, it's a wonderful plant. And of course, it's native has those red kind of branches that help you see the shape of it. Full sun or light shade, light to moderate water, although in the summer it does not like water. Likes good drainage, attracts birds and moths, and deer resistant. Now this picture is a real blow up of the picture. And the one thing that's so wonderful about this big plant is it has right now is in bloom. And it has, as you may know already, Manzanitas is little apples. And it has these little almost heart-shaped blossoms. Mine are white. And then when they come to fruit, they'll have these little, maybe 1.5 inch round, prickly, not prickly hard, but apples. One can be yellow or one can be orange. Deer resistant, attracting birds and moths. I saw lots of birds in my yard this morning. Next. Salvia. Salvias are from Mexico and South. This is autumn sage. And the sages are part of the mint family, the largest. And it has a square stem. So you can always tell what a salvia is. Again, full sun to part shade, but watch out if it begins to wilt. You have to think about maybe putting another plant around it to give it some shade, because the direct hot sun is, for some, difficult for salvias. Attracts hummingbirds and bees. You can't see it really well here, but it has little tubular parts of the flowers, and the bees love that. Deer resistant, blooms summer, fall. Next. Leptospermum scoparium. I can't remember this one, but I like that now that I'm beginning to say it, I'm getting a little better at it. Leptospermum. Tea tree, Australian tea tree, New Zealand tea tree. As you can see here, it's a compact, nice little bush of pink, and it does have white blossoms. And very often you'll see it limbed up. So the bottom part of the tree, it makes it into a tree by shaping it in that way. And it lasts almost around here for all summer. Whatever to tell you, full moderated, drought tolerant, once established, needs good drainage. It's a very, very nice addition to your yard. Can make it smaller or bigger. Okay, next. This is the same plant, and you can see the size of the blossoms, how they're little on the stem and grow up. So they have a dense foliage feeling to it. It says blooms midwinter to spring, blooms all year in mild climates. Next. Cistus. Now here you have, oops, I have to go back again. We're going to do this? Okay. Cistus hybridus, white rock rose. The rock rose, they say, is deer resistant. When we didn't have our fence up, we had deer that loved rock rose, but they have a very special scent, which is really quite nice. But be aware of scents as well, scents. Full sun, it says you can use it in hot sites. These flowers look a little small in the picture, but they tend to be about 2.5 inches wide at least. Blooms late spring, hardy, low maintenance, attracts bees and butterflies. Nice addition if you like the scent. And what happened when we had the deer is they'd eat things off, and their saliva would kill the growing pattern. So if you have lots of deer, be aware of that. Next. Choisya ternata is Mexican orange or mock orange, it's been called. And mine is quite big, but it really was affected by either the drought, so that the type it was, or it was having a hard time. It also said in one thing I read that it can be attacked by sucking instruments, sucking insects. Medium water need. So that's another thing. I think it had a hard time with our drought recently. Next. Boy, I really like this. I went through this fast. So now you can get more information from Arlene. I love Festuca, California, and just fescue in general, because you have these little pods of little grasses, because this is the only grass that I showed you. But it's 1 to 2 feet wide and 2 to 3. I just put 3 in my yard this morning, my garden, And your eye, if you have it at different places, first of all, you always like to plant things in threes if you can do it, rather than just one plant here and one plant there and one plant here, meaning your eye needs something to go around your garden too. So that's what I've done with the fescue. If I walk down the stairs, I see a couple on the stairs. I go down in the garden, I see more, and it carries my eye through the garden. If it begins to get old, it will die in the center. And I did not have great success separating them and dividing them. But the ones that are have been going for years are doing very well and make me happy. And now I'll like you to turn you over to Arlene Banks, who will do our next 10. And I'll listen carefully as you will. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks, Geri. That was very interesting. The next plant is the Berberis thunbergii rose glow, and it is a deciduous shrub, which means that it will lose its leaves. This time of year, it's very pretty. It looks like the picture, almost, red, almost a burning bush. I walk around my neighborhood, and I live near the JCC, and there's a wonderful example of it at the JCC in their pots that are right outside their front door. They have the Berberis thunbergii there. It's quite impressive. They can get tall, 4 to 6 feet tall, 4 to 6 feet wide. They do like full sun. They have a flower, but it's really kind of an insignificant flower. It's known mostly for the foliage, how pretty it is, and how it creates a contrast between the red foliage and something that might be green next to it. It is low to medium water. It will take any soil, but likes good drainage. It is low maintenance and deer resistant. And it is native to Japan. It does have it has, as I said, the spring flowers are insignificant, but it has berries in the fall, and that attracts the birds. All right, next slide. Lavaterra maritima, Mediterranean tree mallow. Another evergreen shrub, 6 to 10 feet high, so it can get very big, and 6 to 8 feet wide. It likes the full sun. It is fast growing. If you're impatient, this is a good plant for you. It needs regular water, and it likes well-drained soil. It attracts butterflies. You want to prune in autumn. My neighbor has one, and the flowers are still coming out. Very pretty. The flower is like a bicolor. And, actually, another name for the plant is called Lavaterra bicolor. It is a kind of a light purpley pink around the outside, and inside is a darker purple. And the flower itself is a nice size, about maybe 2.5 inches wide. And the leaves are interesting in that they're a maple-like shape leaf, different from a lot of our sort of drought-tolerant kinds of plants that we're used to. Has a good size leaf, and it is native to the Western Mediterranean. Okay, let's see what else about that. It's okay in containers too, the Lavaterra maritima. Next slide, please. Lantana montevidensis, also known as trailing lantana or trailing shrub verbena. A lot of these plants have different names. So like what Geri says, you want to try to go with the Latin name, because those are universal names. It is an evergreen woody shrub, and also is used frequently as a ground cover. It gets 1 to 1.5 feet high and 3 to 5 feet wide. It likes full sun. It doesn't like a lot of water. In fact, if you give it too much water, that'll reduce the amount of flower. And you want the flowers because they're so pretty. First time I ever saw it was many years ago at the Hearst Castle, and it was cascading over a big wall, and it was just magnificent, just solid purple flowers. They must have very good gardeners there at the Hearst Castle, because that was very impressive. It can also be used in hanging baskets, and has a long bloom season. But if you're not careful and you don't prune it enough, it can get very woody. So it has to be pruned well. It is deer resistant, attracts butterflies, and to say it blooms through much of the summer into winter. Okay. Lilac flowers, lilac colored flowers. Next slide, please. All right, the Ribes sanguineum, variety glutinosum, otherwise known as winter currant, flowering currant. Deciduous shrub, but I think in our climate, it's more kind of an evergreen, pretty much stays green all year. It can get to 10 feet high, 6 feet wide. On the coast, it can take full sun. Inland, where we are, it needs part shade. Where I live, actually, some people might be out in West Marin, so it can take full sun out there. It likes low water, and it can take many soil types, including clay. Deer resistant. Blooms in the winter and spring, and the flowers are spectacular. These drooping clusters of pink flowers. It is native to the coast ranges of California all the way up to British Columbia, and it's known to grow at 6,000 feet. And it's a great bush if you're looking for something to attract the birds, the hummingbirds and the bees. What did I want to say about that? The berries on this tree are edible but very tart, and the berries come out in the fall. Okay, next slide. Okay, Salvia waverley or Waverly sage. This is another salvia. There are many, many salvias, many species of salvia. It is also known as Mexican bush sage, velvet sage. It is an evergreen, tender shrub, also referred to as a perennial. 3 to 5 feet high, 3 to 5 feet tall. Can take sun or part shade. It needs some water, but will tolerate the drought, as most plants will once they're established. And it likes a well-drained soil, attracts bees, butterflies, hummingbirds. And it needs to be clipped, deadheaded regularly, and summer pruned to shape. It is from central and eastern Mexico. And another one, as Geri said, it's a member of the mint family, the Lemmonii family. But this plant, as well as some of the others, they do need to be cropped every year to keep it compact and to keep it from getting stringy and leggy. This one has no scent. scent. Okay. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, Nepeta racemosa, also known as catmint. This is green, and it is a perennial used frequently as a ground cover. It is low maintenance. It has a It can get to 2.5 feet high, 2.5 to 3 feet wide, likes full sun, likes moderate water, well drained, deer resistant. And I should say, if for those of you who are relatively new gardeners, deer resistant means just that the deer might eat it. And I have noticed that happens a lot, especially with the new plants that you just got from the nursery, and that if you leave them out, they might, and you live in an area where there's deer, they'll eat them, especially, you know, those new tender leaves. So deer resistant is doesn't mean it's deer proof. Blooms, the catmint blooms spring to fall. So that's a very nice long blooming season. It is known to self-seed. It attracts hummingbirds and butterflies. And I have never seen this, but I understand that cats like to roll in it. Has anybody seen that? It's okay, you don't have to tell me. But that's why they call it catmint. It's also known as Persian catmint or blue wonder. Has a wonderful sort of pinky, small pinky flower, and the leaves are a gray green, and there's like a serrated edge, like mint. You know how the mint has a serrated edge on the leaf, and it has a minty scent. Next slide. Okay. Okay. I'm just looking at one of the questions. Okay. Calandrinia grandiflora, rock purslane. This is a succulent. It's a perennial succulent. I think it's our only succulent in this group. And it can get, well, 15 inches high, but even higher. Where I live, in my neighborhood, they get the actual succulent part, the green part, 2 feet, and then the long tendrils where the flowers grow, even higher, so 3.5 feet to the crown. It likes full sun. It's a low water use, well drained. It likes well drained, slightly acidic soil. It's good for rock gardens and containers. And it blooms spring to fall, so very bloom season. There's flowers on it almost constantly. This is a very nice specimen. Some of them don't look as, you know, around. There might be some flowers on one side and flowers on the other, but the flowers themselves only last like a day. But there's so many buds on the plant that you always, or pretty much always, have flowers spring to fall. And it attracts butterflies and bees. It is native to Chile, and it does need some care. You need to clip it so that it stays a nice shape. And the flowers are spectacular. They're sort of poppy shaped, and they're almost an iridescent sort of desert, you know, if you've ever been to see the desert bloom pink, just a crazy, almost glow in the dark pink. Very pretty. Next slide, please. Okay. Epilobium canum, California Fuchsia. So semi-deciduous, perennial or shrub, so used as a ground cover. It can get to 1.5 feet high, 3 feet wide. It likes full sun, very low water, many soil types. It is deer resistant. It blooms late summer and fall. Self-seeds and attracts hummingbirds and butterflies. It is a native to the U.S. Southwest. They call it the California Fuchsia because the flowers look like fuchsias. They're trumpet shaped. That's why they're attractive to the hummingbirds. And they're good for rock gardens. They have other names too. Hummingbird flower or the hummingbird trumpet flower. So, all right, next slide. All right, Coleonema pulchellum, sunset gold, also known as pink breath of heaven or breath of heaven. Evergreen shrub, 1.5 feet high. I've seen it higher, and 4 feet wide. Full sun to part shade. It takes moderate water and well-drained soil. Again, deer resistant. It blooms in the winter, late winter, spring. It has a very pretty little white or pink flower on there, and the leaves are needle-like and a kind of a bright green chartreuse color. Another great contrast, green color for the garden, contrast to other foliage in the garden. It also has a fragrance if you brush up against it. It's aromatic when rubbed. It's known to be good on hillsides and attracts bees and butterflies. It is native to South Africa. Okay, it has a nice soft feel when you touch it. Okay. Next slide, please. All right, Grevillea noelli, or Grevillea noellii, or Grevillea noellii, depending on who your Latin teacher was. But anyway, or Noel's Grevillea, or hummingbird bush. It is an evergreen shrub. It's actually, let's see, it can get very big. This is a fast grower. If you're looking to, to fill in quickly, 4 to 5 feet wide. Takes full sun, low water, very great for hot summers. It's a forgiving plant. So if you're looking to sort of fill in a big area, it's a good one. Although we all have to be concerned fire safety now too. It's heat and wind tolerant. It's a hardy plant and is good on slopes if you need to fill in a slope. And attracts hummingbirds because it has those flowers that are tubular that the hummingbirds like. It stays green all year. To touch, it is prickly to touch, so you wouldn't want it too close to where children are playing or like that. When I planted it many in my garden, and I thought, well, they called it Noellii because it was Christmas, because that's when I found the flowers bloomed around Christmas time. But I don't know if it's actually related to Christmas. It might be somebody's name, like Noel, but I'm not sure. If anybody knows, please let me know. There's many kinds of Grevillea, and most of them are native to Australia, but this one is known to be from California. Anyway, I think that's our last plant. So if there's questions.
Many questions here.
There's a lot of can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. There is a lot in the chat. Should I keep going through is that the end of the slideshow? Okay, it is. Okay, just wanting to make sure. Okay. Yes, there are several questions in the chat. This is weird. Let me, I'm gonna end the presentation, end the recording, and then we'll do the questions part, if that's okay. All right. Where's my